Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of the Oi Let's Talk podcast. We have a special guest in today, which I'm really excited about. I just want to introduce you as the Combat Physio because I feel like everyone knows you by your Instagram name.
May
Take
as well
it away.
introduce me as the Combat Physio Guy, formerly known as Rulan Albarouki. That's why people call me the Combat Physio, because it's a mouthful to say my full name. Thank you for having me, and Oi, let's talk.
We are so excited. So I'm not going to intro you. You tell everybody what you do, who you are.
Sure. So I'm a physiotherapist. I'm niched in with sports, so you could call me a sports physiotherapist if you like. I've been working for myself for just over the last 2 years. I'm currently self-employed, so as in I'm a solo practitioner at the moment. I don't have anyone necessarily working for me. Other than me practicing, I'm also a clinical business mentor as well. So a big part of my job right now, I've peeled back a lot on my clients, and I'm focusing more on education at the moment. So focusing a lot more on online education through the courses, through the face-to-face workshops, where we're helping take good practitioners to being great practitioners. So that's what I'm mainly focused on. I've got a very hands-on approach to physiotherapy. Where I'm all about the deep tissue massage, the dry needles, the cups, the joint mobilizations, the adjustments, and then bulletproofing all of that with comprehensive strength and conditioning programs, and working with coaches like yourselves on a regular basis, which is cool. And I've got a strong multidisciplinary team of practitioners around me. So I work a lot with sports medicine doctors, the radiologists, the surgeons, chiropractors. So I'm not just like a one-trick pony, as per se, but I also recognize that I've got limitations to what I do. And so that's me in a nutshell.
I love this. I also love the fact that you mentioned strength and conditioning, and we're going to go in hard straight away because we've got a lot that we want to talk about, business things, injury prevention, all of that. But strength and conditioning, how many physios do you know say, if you're injured, just rest? Don't bother training. It's all good.
I know of a lot. I've got a lot of clients that come in through the clinic and they're like, oh, my physio just said rest, or they gave me this. Are we allowed to swear, by the way?
Yeah. Send it away.
Shitty fucking little, calf stretch, and just take a rest for the next week. And it's crazy because I feel like on my socials, there are a lot more young practitioners, whether they're physio, osteo, myos, who are encouraging early loading. But then there are still horror stories out there of physio saying, just rest.
Yeah.
So and it's really sad that it still happens a lot.
I find that this happens a lot with like my clients, for example. They'll get injured, something will happen, they'll go and see a physio who maybe is a little bit older, like a physio who's been in the industry for a lot longer, maybe not kept up with the new research and studies, and then they get told to rest. And I see it as a bit of a problem because it peels back their ability to be able to load, grow strength, whatever their kind of goal is.
Yeah, it's a real problem because irrespective of even what research says, it's just common sense. And if you're a competent clinician, you'll understand biomechanics, you'll understand anatomy, you'll understand physiology, pathology, and based on our understanding of based on our understanding of biomechanics and pathology, then you know that we have to load people up soon, and we want to encourage them. We want to encourage early loading so that they can quickly achieve their goals. Whether it be just going back to being on your feet all day, or going back to sport, whatever it might be. So it goes against a lot of common sense. Which is unfortunately common sense isn't so common.
Facts.
The other point I was going to say, other than actually the positives of continuing to load and not just stopping altogether, but also the mental health benefits of not losing your momentum and at least focusing on what it is that you can do. I think that's a really big positive. Like if you were to sprain your foot or do something to your knee and you were told do nothing for 4 weeks, but you could in reality train upper body. I think that shifting your mindset into training upper body would be a really big positive for, again, not losing momentum and just feeling good because you're still doing something.
Yeah, I agree. So there is a huge psychosomatic or let's call it a psychological component to pain. I learned this from a mentor not when I first started, but somewhere along the way from a chiropractor. He acts as my mentor. And there are 3 pillars to pain. You've got emotional, physical, and then chemical. Now, so the physical meaning, I strained my bicep, for example. It's very mechanical. Something's literally, you've just strained something. Then there's chemical, which is, you might have testosterone deficiency, hormonal imbalances that aren't allowing you to heal and recover fast, and therefore you're constantly in pain, right? Now, let's say as a clinician, you've addressed both physical and chemical, what could be physical and chemical causes to pain. You've sent off your client for blood tests, everything comes back clear, you've given them supplements, they're cruising now, diet's good, and you've given them their rehab, but they're still in pain. And we know that there is a deeper emotional component or factor in why they're still feeling pain. So now, to give more context to what you're saying, if you completely take something away from someone and then and for a long time, they don't move and they develop deconditioning, the brain learns that. The brain starts to learn that I can't move like this. And that's when we start to develop fear. You get scared and you become apprehensive towards performing certain movements, and there might be certain ranges that the body's not used to being exposed to. It will then cause pain for that individual. So I see it all the time. People with lower back pain, you send them off for an MRI, and there's nothing really wrong with their lower back. But then if you see how they get up and down, picking up something from the ground, they've got to keep their back completely straight because they're scared. So for sure, there is that's why we don't want to scare people off. We don't want to fearmonger, as you mentioned earlier. And definitely. And that's why I encourage early loading. For sure.
The fear part is so real. So at the moment, I am a hybrid athlete. I brought this up like 80 times on the podcast before. But anyways, just let me live my fucking delusional life. I'm a hybrid athlete at the moment. Love strength training, have suddenly gotten into running. I was saying this before to you. Went from 500 meters to 14 Ks, fucked my hip. Now I live in fear, not really, but I live in fear because every time I go to run, obviously I'm doing all my rehab, doing the things that I need to do. Every time I go to run, I'm like, but what about if I injure myself again? Then I also live in this feeling of, it's probably a mindset thing where I feel disheartened that I'm taking steps backward instead of moving forward.
Sure.
And do you deal with that a lot with patients who come in and you've taken away, their exercise that they can't do, or they're doing rehab and then all of a sudden it becomes more mindset driven?
100%. You've got two types of clients. You've got clients who don't do enough and then clients who do too much. Let's call them athletes.
Hybrid athletes.
Kate
Morris, who does way too much.
It's a great thing. It's positive because it's highlighting that we're not confined or limited by what we do in the gym. Just because you're in the gym lifting weights for hypertrophy goals doesn't mean that you can't be a functional athlete. You can't run, you can't sprint, you can't box. So it's great. But what happens is that there are athletes that attach their identity to their sports, especially those who are, just from my experience, obviously you've got, everyone takes their sport very seriously at the top level, but I see it a lot with boxers in particular, where it's this whole mentality of no boxing, no life. It's literally a thing they say, no boxing, no life. And there's almost no regard for their body. Like, no, I'm getting in there, I'm fighting, I'm training, I'm sparring. There is intense FOMO if they don't do it. And in that kind of situation, let's say if someone's ruptured, or not ruptured, let's say they've torn a tendon in their shoulder, let's call it a supraspinatus tear. Now, normally, obviously, there'd be a period of time where you deload. For the next 2 weeks, let's bring the load back down. So some load management strategies, introduce them to some rehab treatments, then reintroduce them to some pad work. But because you're taking, it may not be a big deal to you as a practitioner, but to them, that's a huge deal. If their mental health is fully dependent on how many boxing sessions they're completing each week, and their livelihood in terms of how much money they earn based on whether they win or not depends, if they're largely depending on their success in the ring, it's a big deal. So in these cases, sometimes it's counterproductive if I pull them back too much. So I have to give them two opinions. Go, man, there's the physio opinion, the clinical opinion, then there's the human opinion or the athlete's opinion. So I give them two sides two perspectives, and it's up to them to choose what they decide to do. I like to try and meet them halfway. I may not completely strip you of loading, but I might just minimize loading so that it doesn't have detrimental effects on your mental health, because you can actually send them further back. So to go back to the original point, about the mental aspect to training and rehab, it plays almost, I wouldn't say 80%, but let's just say it's almost, I think it's half the battle. For sure. Yeah.
See, I love that answer that you just gave, being like giving them two options. You can either do the physio route or you can do this route, whatever you think is going to be better.
Yeah.
I think that's cool because I've seen a lot of physios, myos over my lifetime, my career.
Yeah.
I was going to act like I'm a physio over my lifetime. And you get some that are like, no, you need to stop training immediately.
Yeah.
You need to rest. That's all you need to do.
Yep.
Versus then you get some who are like, only do your rehab. Then you get some like yourself who obviously give you multiple different options, which I think is great.
More collaborative.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I just see it as again, common sense. Why are we so defensive over what we do? Because now you're making it about you. You're not making it about the person. From last time I checked, a huge part of evidence-based practice, which every practitioner rambles on about, I'm evidence-based, I'm following the research. A big part of research is meeting client expectations. It's about being a client-centered practitioner. So you're making it about the person, the individual. So if their goals are that, hey, I need to fight in 4 weeks, I'm not going to say just do your rehab, because if there are some pathologies or some injuries that are just too far gone now, I'm sorry, but this sort of wanky stuff in the gym, this rotator cuff stuff, there's a time and place for it, but this stuff and then doing a couple shrugs and doing your little bird dog things and your scap push-ups in 4 weeks and your deep breathing exercises in the morning are not going to be enough to regulate your nervous system and bolster a healing response. I'm shooting you straight off to a regenerative medicine doctor. We're getting platelets in your shoulder. We're getting you to a hyperbaric chamber 3 or 4 times a week. We're getting in for treatment twice a week. We're trying to get you there ASAP. So you've got to advocate for the person, not for yourself. And there are practitioners who are, I'm rehab and fuck all manual therapy. I'm anti-manual therapy. And then what happens? It's really sad because now I'm getting really into it now because like
I love the passion.
You're like, oh, because it really pisses me off. See it so much. It's like that Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other.
Yeah.
It's like that with different practitioners. Like you've got the manual therapy practitioner, rehab, and then you've got the like the cowboy who's just like I like to call them, with all due respect, please guys don't be angry at this term, but like the modality whores. Like they're like they want to do the cupping and the needles and the electrodes and the scraping and the fascia and the this, and it's just like they've got a trick and a solution for everything. But it's really just showing from a business perspective, look at all the things that I can do. But then they're forgetting, does it actually work? Because there's a difference between what treatments are you doing? So what services do you provide versus are you actually helping someone? They're two totally different things. So yeah, just do what works. Simple.
I want to bust some myths.
Yeah, same. Go for it.
I want to bust some myths because I feel like this is cool. And my first myth that I propose to you, slipping a disc.
It's a really good one. All right.
Can you actually slip a disc? Because I've heard multiple things about this and I'm not a physio, so.
I've also got a good one after this.
So discs are very strong and they're bound by surrounding ligaments that protect discs. There are strong bones, they're called vertebral bodies, that help protect the discs, and then there are muscles around it as well. So there are a lot of layers that protect our spine, in particular our discs, and the content of our discs are really strong. They're robust in nature, but they're also compliant as well, hence because they're shock absorbers, right? They can't be made of concrete. So you can't actually slip a disc. That's a big myth. So there's your answer.
Busted.
Busted.
Here on the Oi Let's Talk podcast.
You heard it here first.
You cannot slip discs.
Perfect.
On that note, one of my lecturers at uni, he couldn't say discs. He say intervertebral dick.
That's painful.
Yeah.
So bad.
I have one next. I see this a lot with the booty band activation stuff. Are my glutes actually asleep? Do I need to wake them up before I do hip thrusts? Is that a myth?
I think what a myth is a muscle group being asleep.
That's what I want to touch
myth.
on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Muscle groups aren't asleep, but are they not primed? Yes, they're probably not primed already for the gym session because you haven't practiced the movement. So your neurology is not necessarily prepared for the movements under certain loads that you're about to do. So then we prime our muscle groups through practicing movements. And if you want to use a booty band to cue you to use these muscle groups so that you can quickly prime your nervous system and your muscles to prepare you for the session, that's fine. But to say that they're asleep, no, it can be very misleading.
So I'd say more of a terminology issue. A muscle is not asleep, otherwise we wouldn't be able to walk because we simply need our glutes in that movement. But my other takeaway from that would be priming your warm-up based around the movements that you're going to replicate in the session. It doesn't make sense to do random upper body things if you're training lower body.
Correct. Specificity is key.
Yes.
And we forget our fundamentals. Strength is positional. Why is it someone can max out on hip thrusts, like 200 kilos, then you go get them to do a deadlift or a squat and they struggle? Because it's a different movement altogether. And you've got, on that note, you've got two different types of movements. You've got output-focused movements. There's different ways you can categorize them. Let's just say there are stability-focused movements, and then there are output-focused movements. The stability-focused movements is when the stability is internalized. So it's when you perform a squat, you have to have a strong trunk stability, pelvic stability, knee stability, all these things, and that is quite taxing on our nervous system, and it requires a lot of skill, right? Then you've got output-focused movements, which are great for hypertrophy and maxing out because the stability is externalized. Like if you're doing leg extensions, you're just sitting there and just pumping out as much as you can. So you might be really strong performing an output-focused exercise, but not very strong when performing a stability-focused exercise like a squat. So you have to prepare yourself for the movements beforehand.
What's a myth that you see commonly in your industry that you want to bust?
I don't want to ruffle both your feathers
Ruffle
here, right?
them away.
Right.
Oh, it's going to be an attack on personal trainers.
No. PTs are amazing.
I was actually going to say, as a PT, I am definitely a person that does not practice outside my scope. That's another myth that we could bust. Personal trainers practicing outside their scope
Manual handling.
instead of referring out. That's a big one. But
ruffle away.
Yeah, I'll ruffle away.
The feathers are ruffled.
And you know what? And look, it's not even ruffling. It's just to raise
Why did you
awareness.
say that like a little kid? It's not even ruffling.
My triceps are a bit sore. I just did. DOMs. Anyway. So, a lot of PTs don't even know what DOMs are. Anyways, but that if you train your traps are overactive because they're strong. There's a big myth that people shouldn't, especially girls, don't want to train their traps because they're scared that if they train them, they're going to get really bulky and that they're already overactive.
Oh, yeah. I see this
and I'll
all
tell
the
you
time.
why. And I'll tell you why. It's because there's been a misunderstanding along the way. Now, I understand if you don't want big traps, cool. That's fine. But training your traps once or twice a week at higher volumes and lower intensities is not going to give you Trapzilla traps. You're not going to be like Brock Lesnar, from doing, doing shrugs, doing 15 reps of 3 sets of shrugs twice a week for 5 weeks. And I see a lot of women with the majority of the clients I see that come in with cervicogenic headaches, so tension headaches, are women, are girls. And if you look at girls' necks, there's no traps, nothing.
You're going to say jaw?
No. Oh, jaw, yeah, of course. Yeah. Jaw is a factor, of course. It's multifactorial, but a big, obvious one are the traps because the traps act as what we call scapular stabilizers. It takes me back, Gemma, to when I think I was giving you a handover about a client. You were like, you trying to mansplain something?
I just wasn't going to have it. I was like, absolutely not, mate.
I didn't know where you were at,
I was so sassy, but I was like, I hope you understand it's banter.
Oh, no, of course. No, I knew you were bantering.
Yeah.
I'm
Is
not
this a
precious
punch
like
on the live podcast?
Look, I don't understand. So traps, they elevate and retract our shoulder blades. Now, if the traps are weak and you're not doing that, then what's going to happen to our shoulder blades? They're going to fall down and forward. Which is going to bring me to a next myth about structure equals function, which I want to bust in a second because there's a lot going on about that right now. But shoulder blades fall down and forward. And what this will then do is that it'll then, if you want to get a bit technical here, we have something in biomechanics called length tension relationships. If something is too long or too far stretched, it's going to be tight and weak. If something's too short, it's going to be too tight and weak because you're not giving it enough. It's not stretching enough to generate enough force. So it's just really tight and it can't move, right? So you need a muscle that's somewhere in the middle, mid-range. So if you're not training your traps, then they're going to get really long and tight, and that's why they're overactive. And what happens is that then it's going to then pull on your neck, because where do your traps hinge off? Your neck. So then your neck gets stiff, and then you wonder why you then have these tension headaches. Then as soon as we then, not necessarily immediately, but as soon as we then start throwing in some shrugs, oh, my headaches are gone. What the heck? My neck feels so much better, because now we're starting to shorten these muscles. And what happens is as they get stronger, they become more efficient at performing their roles of supporting the shoulder blades in our necks. But when they're weak, they're not very efficient. So more energy, more stress is required to support our shoulder blades in our neck. So what happens is that we very quickly accrue or accumulate mechanical stress and tension in our traps, and that's why they're tight all the time. It's not because they're strong. They're actually tight because they're weak. So that's one myth I want to bust, is that you don't have overactive traps because they're strong, because they're weak.
Well, this would be the same as like any muscle group, right? Like when people come with like lower back pain, usually you would see that from weak glutes, weak hamstrings, weak erector spinae. Look at me go. You know what I mean? So like when something is weak, naturally any joint around it is probably going to...
Trying to take over.
Yeah.
Support, stabilize.
Exactly. So why have we all of a sudden looked at the traps to fit our narrative of, oh, I don't want big traps. We say that we shouldn't train them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I 100% agree.
Myth busted.
I have a question to give some practical advice to our listeners.
Sure.
So hypothetically, I've gone to the gym, I've done deadlifts, and I wake up and my back is sore. I feel pain. What would your practical advice be to returning to the gym pain-free?
So I don't want to give the annoying answer, it depends, right? But let's then give more context. Let's say it's a severe disc issue from deadlifts. Discs become compressed under a certain amount of flexion and load, of course. And now whether it's severe or not, if you have a disc irritation, it's nasty. Lower back, you're obviously in a lot of pain, your muscles seize up, you might even feel like a muscle spasm. So that week, I just say, don't go to the gym that week. If you are going to go to the gym, it would be just to start restoring some movement in your lower back. Now, a lot of physios, by the way, they're really against anti-inflammatories, and they're really against not going to the gym as well. So it's funny because you've got one part that's rest, and you've got the physios who are just pushing you too fast. I say, mate, you can't even move today. Just take it easy. Next 2 days, just don't go to the gym. Go for a walk if you can, and we can offer some early mobility exercises. You can give them, if they're not too acutely inflamed, you can get them on their back doing some glute bridges, some real light glute bridges. You can give them a Mackenzie's exercise where they lay on their stomach and bring their spine up to help decompress the discs in their back. And you get them doing that maybe, for example, 2 sets of 10 reps twice a day just to start offloading the pressure on the disc. And heat, I'm a huge advocate for heat. So if you have access to a sauna, get in the sauna that whole week, every day for 20 minutes at a time. Hot showers are good too. I even know some athletes that find that hot and cold therapy in the acute stage works really well. So that's another option too. But that week would be, don't go rush back into the gym and be a hero. Just focus on getting some movement back, get the inflammation under control for the rest of the week. So let's say over the next 4 to 5 days, then we can get you back in and get you loading up your glutes. But with reference to deadlifts, we don't want any hinging movements just yet. So we start with something like something as basic as hamstring curls. Standing cable hip abductions are great because you're not really hinging. And if they're feeling better than what we expect, then you can get them doing some degree of hinging in the form of a rack pull, for example, because a rack pull, you're reducing the range. Range is substantially reduced. And then we can go a step, then you can even further modify it. One of my favorite lower back rehab exercises that I program in at the start and all the way through to the end are rack pulls, barbell rack pulls with abduction. So what I mean by this is feet would come in closer together, throw a band around the knees, and then you would cue them to actually abduct, so drive their knees out during the descent, because rather than going too deep to put the glutes on stretch and then obviously challenge our lumbar stabilizers like our rectus spinae, you're making up for the reduced range through the abduction. So it increasing mechanical tension through our glutes without going through too much range. So yeah, that's my overall advice. Sum that up. Don't rush back into the gym. Get a hot shower or a sauna every day if you can, and then early loading through glute bridges, McKenzie's exercises twice a day, just generalizing. Then the next week, let's get you back in the gym and try and start performing pain-free movements. Pain-free, by the way. We don't want to push people through pain.
And I would also add a fourth one: see a physio.
Oh, yeah.
Which you forgot.
Oh, Chrissy, I'm so helpful.
Now, before we wrap up the episode, because we could literally talk for hours about this,
Yeah.
I want to know a little bit business-wise, because we've talked a lot about injury prevention, etc.
Sure.
Business-wise, you said you started your business 2 years ago, and you've had insane amount of growth and success. So run us through maybe some of the things that you've learned along the way being a business owner.
Can I add a question in there you can double up in your answer? I also wanted to ask about what you think makes a good to great physio.
Sure. Well, question number one. The thing that I've learnt the most out of running my business is that the thing for me personally, there are heaps of things we learn, but the thing that stands out for me is that you are literally forced to be more disciplined.
I love that, yeah.
You're forced to be more, I can't wing it anymore. You have to be this. You start to realize, damn, there's only so many hours in the day. I've got to be fully across all of my numbers. I've got to be fully across, how many clients I'm seeing each week. I've got to be fully aware of, what I'm charging, what my margins are. I've got to, I've got to leave time to build out my programs for my clients, and then do my admin and do my notes, and then and I need to then recognize where my limitations are in terms of my time, and when do I then start to delegate. And so that's what I've learned. That's the number one thing, is that I'm forced to be even more disciplined than what I was before. So I think it's brought the best out of me in that regard. And to then add on to then what makes you the difference between good to great physiotherapist is that a good physio is probably clinically really good, but a good physio probably will just go with emotions a little bit. Like, yeah, I'm kind of happy with what I'm doing right now. It works, see you next week. And they're booking out maybe a week, 2 weeks in advance. Cool, prices are the same. But a great physio is not satisfied. A great physio will want to learn more and is worried about stagnation. So for me, I'm scared clinically that if I don't keep learning, if I don't have mentors around me, that I'm going to be the smartest guy in the room all the time, as per se. A great physio will always put themselves in rooms where
small fish.
Yeah. Small fish mentality. So we're a bit more like a fluffy philosophical answer for that. But now a clinical example would be a great physio would align themselves with other practitioners that they can refer their clients onto, because we can't fix everything. A good physio may fix most things, but they could fix more if they just referred out a little bit more and recognize that there's limitations to their scope. You can't massage your way out of every fucking injury that comes in through the door, and you can't rehab your way out of everything. So yeah, that's my answer for that. And in terms of, now to finalize all of that, or to conclude the answer to both those things, I had to make a decision. Do I want to scale through people and hire, or do I want to teach?
Yeah, this was going to be my next question for you. So at the start, you mentioned that you're doing, obviously, yes, you're still practicing face-to-face with clients, but now you're turning into helping other physios go from that good to great method. Exactly. So what does that look like? A university?
Yeah, CPG University. So it's an education business, primarily online, but there are face-to-face options through the workshops. I'm literally going to Sydney today. We have a workshop tomorrow over the weekend, a 2-day workshop. So I'm really passionate about teaching because I'm helping people help more people. So I am helping people on a meta basis. As a clinician, you can only exchange so much time for money, and I have to make a decision. Do I want to hire people and teach them and show them my ways as per se, and then fill up their books with clients? I did do that, and it was good, but it's not something I am passionate enough about. So I decided to go down the route of education and scale that, and help practitioners go from good to great, in that give them the courage to up their prices, give them the courage to start being more assertive and rebooking their clients in advance, to take more control, and to start saying, you know what, to give them hope and go, I'm that busy, I can up my prices, I can hire someone, and I can start reinvesting back into my business. And so that's something I'm hugely passionate about. I don't want to just reach people in Australia. We're in the process of, I'm actually, spoiler alert, I'm relocating to Dubai as we're speaking.
Just casually, a bit of a casual drop. That's great.
Yeah, mic drop. Yeah, literally within the next 2 months.
Amazing.
The clients of mine, like Haneen, who goes to see you in person, is going to be shattered when she hears this news.
Yeah, that's kind of rude, but okay.
It's exciting for you.
You know what? I forgot to mention it before, and there's just so much going on. So we want to. The goal is to run courses worldwide. We want to take this thing worldwide. And obviously a great start, obviously the domestic face-to-face courses and the online CPG university. So really excited to see what the future holds for us.
Amazing.
Amazing. I have so many more questions for you, but we're going to have to wrap it up. Maybe when you're back from Dubai, we'll have you on again. Our listeners are going to love this episode. Plug away. Where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram and TikTok. Just find us. Just type in the Combat Physio Guy. If you do want treatment, especially before I leave, I am located in Toorak, out of a beautiful Pilates studio called Aura Studios, just next to the Mercedes-Benz dealership. If you're from Melbourne, we also do run telehealth consults. So if you do just want to chat online, we can arrange that too. Yeah, booking links in the bio.
We'll pop all of your information in the show notes anyways. But thank you so much for coming on. I think the main takeaway for me is like your passion is insane, which you're going to do great, and you're already super successful, which is awesome.
Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate you having me on. I had a great time. Thank you.
Amazing.
Bye.
Thank you.